the substantive conversation just keeps on going, and I'd like to introduce as the moderator of this afternoon's the remainder of this afternoon session, another great treasure at the GTU, Ted Peters, professor of theology at the Pacific Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary and the Graduate Theological Union. Don't worry, so Ted, thank you so much.
Well, the next few minutes we're going to call the book launch, and as Jim Donahue mentioned earlier, over this last 25 years, CTNS really has gradually radiated out so that our influence, for good or ill, is really worldwide in character. And one of the various ways in which people have come to know and benefit from CTNS's work has been through publications. There are lots of kinds of publications in science and religion, and some of them are kind of like those Jell-O salads that they have at Lake Wobegon church dinners. And other publications are like New York steak, still on the bone, and in which your teeth have to sink in and rip it off, and that's known as the CTNS Vatican series. And everywhere I go, and I'll bet you you as well, when people are really serious and really sophisticated about the field, this is the core series of books that people read, and they're in libraries all over the world, and this is, without a doubt, at least to date, the most serious contribution to the dialogue, mainly because I think we have contributions from first-rate scientists, first-rate theologians, philosophers and ethicists in interaction, and without an ideology. We've got important questions. Let's see how we can move a common frontier of discussion forward. Now that we've had our 25 years, and I'm thinking about some things that have happened, there's one story that a lot of you know, but some of you may not, that I think is one of the most exciting. And in 1987, when the Vatican series was getting going, some of you were there. We met in Rome at Castel Gandolfo. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think Bill Steger, Bob Russell, Nancy Murphy, Michael Heller, who were the core planners of that. At any rate, there was a small group of core planners, George Coyne,
Arthur Peacock, Michael Buckley.
Michael Buckley, that's right, from JSTB. Okay, so we are celebrating the 300th anniversary of Newton's publication of Principia. Pope John Paul II has authorized all of this. We're meeting in Castel Gandolfo in the seminar room there with pictures of great scientists. And above us is Pope John Paul II's bedroom, where we're meeting. And just outside the window, courtyard. And on one of the days in which we're meeting, a delegation from Poland comes, and Pope John Paul II is out there greeting everybody. We look out the window. We continue with our work. And we've been told now that the Holy Father will visit us during the work. And what we want, and what the Pope wants, is a statement about the dialogue between science and religion. Now, this is the first in what became a long series, okay? So we're about to cross a frontier, but we don't know what the other side of the frontier looks like. Well, now you're going to have to correct me. A committee of 4, I was not on this committee, that involved Bob, I thought it was Nancy, but at any rate, a committee of 4 drafts a statement on the dialogue between science and religion for the Pope to consider. George Coyne, director of the Vatican Observatory, delivers it to the Holy Father on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, and reports that he'd called one of the Pope's assistants, who said, "The Pope has read your document, loves it. And we will have an audience then on Saturday, and you can expect to see your work reflected in this document." Okay, come Saturday then, and we go from Castel Gandolfo down to St. Peter's, and we get there, and the Swiss guards meet us, and the American ambassador meets us. He's got a tuxedo on, or one of those big ribbons. And he says, "I don't know what's going on, but whatever it is, it's important because he has sent 2 invitations to all of the ambassadors, to the entire College of Cardinals. And what this means is that from the Pope's point of view, this is going to be very important." Oh, we're impressed, especially those of us who are Protestants, right? So we go into this absolutely gorgeous Renaissance hall in the upstairs of St. Peter's, and even more impressively, he asked those of us who are scholars in the CTNS Vatican team to sit next to him, flanking him. And in the audience, we put the College of Cardinals, we put the Diplomatic Corps, we put the families, all the hoi polloi, right? And so now it's time for the Pope's elocution. And somebody comes out and lays the manuscript down, and he opens it up, and the PA system isn't working quite right. I'm sitting next to Michael Buckley, who is immediately to my left, and as the Pope is reading, I'm hearing references to Vatican I. And I'm thinking, no, we should hear references to Vatican II, not Vatican I. And the word atheism begins to appear. And science and atheism get associated. And Michael Buckley, who's a professor at the Jesuit school, he's shuffling his feet. And I said, "Michael, can you hear?" He says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, what's he saying?" Michael says, "It's terrible. It's awful." And so, at any rate, I was unable to figure out what was going on. And afterward, then we get up and we all shake hands with the Holy Father. He was very gracious. And on the way out, the text for the elocution is handed to us. So now we're going to see it, and in English. And the little group that I was with went to a pizza parlor for lunch, 2 blocks from the Vatican. And it included a physicist from Maryland. Do you remember his name, Bob? Charles Misner. Charles Misner, who's a devout Roman Catholic and a physicist. And we're reading this carefully at lunch, and he is really upset because he's a devout Catholic, and this document denounces science, it denounces secularism, it denounces a naturalism for giving rise to atheism. And we're all thinking, what happened? Something really went wrong here. And, my wife and I at the time spent a little time in Rome. We got back to Castel Gandolfo, and there was Bill and George Coyne and the other Jesuits. And we walked in, and Bill and George were saying, "We apologize. We're so sorry that we brought you all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to have this happen." My wife says, "Oh, but we got a free trip to Rome." Well, at any rate, it was a mystery what happened, because it was clear on Thursday that the Holy Father liked what we were doing, but the Saturday elocution was clearly a denunciation of everything that we were doing. How to handle this? Well, I had actually been asked by the Christian Century magazine to write an article about this historic event. And when I got back, I called the Christian Century. I said, "I really don't know what to write." I said, "I have the text of the Pope's statement here." I said, "But, there's this mystery, and we don't know what's going on." And the editor for the Century said, "Well, look into it and call us back as soon as you can." I no sooner had laid down the phone when it rang and Bob Russell was on the other line. He said, "Ted, whatever you do, don't tell anybody what happened in Rome." And he said, "George Coyne's going to look into this and we're going to find out what happened." So I called the Century back and they said, "Yeah, we'll wait." Well, then months went by. No word, no word. And I think this had occurred in September. So it was the first week in December, and George Coyne from the Vatican Observatory was here for a CTNS event. And by this time, I think everybody had forgotten about it, but I didn't, because I thought I had an article that I was going to write, which I never did. So I took George aside and I said, "George, come on now, what happened on this?" He said, "Well, it took us longer to get an audience with the Pope than we had thought." By he meant himself and Michael Heller. Do I have that right? So he said it was already November, and he said, "We walked into the Pope's quarters." He said, "The Pope stood up and said, 'I am so sorry about what happened on that day.' And he said, 'You brought all these nice people from around the world, and we had this terrible thing happen.'" And George reports to me, and the Holy Father said he offered to write a letter of apology to all of the professors who were there. And I said, "Yes, George, I want an apology from somebody who's infallible." And then George reported the conversation, and what the Pope didn't say, but what became obvious, is that somebody on his staff wrote the address that we heard. And the Pope told George, "I was into the third paragraph," and he says, "I really thought this was heresy." I wanted to say, "Well, if you're a Protestant, you'd have stopped reading." So at that point, as I understand it, and I might have my facts a little bit foggy, that was when George and Michael Heller agreed with the Holy Father to write the piece then that is now published in the front of this book as the Pope's statement. And this was what the Pope really wanted to say, and was written by his hand and not others. And those of you who are here for the 2:00 session, Bob actually gave us one of the more profound paragraphs in what the Holy Father had to say. Well, it was really clear at that point, if it hadn't been clear earlier, that Pope John Paul II was really serious about a healthy dialogue between science and theology, and even with ecumenical participants. And from then on, there was this lengthy, coordinated study that has resulted in all of the books that you can see over there. Well, at any rate, that's just really an introduction to the main point that we want to make here today. This is an important year. It's Bob's birthday. I don't know if I should tell everybody how old you are, but we are celebrating a very important birthday in Bob's life. We're celebrating 25 years of CTNS history. We have a very bright future. And we have two publications in particular that we want to give attention to. And the first is this one. I'm going to ask Carl Hellrich to come up and say a few words about Cosmology, Evolution, and Resurrection Hope, a book by Robert John Russell. Carl, where are you? Tell us how this book originated.